Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
And gentlemen, welcome to the Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That's at Bomani_Jones. Oh, man, Paul George, still an Indiana Pacer. Still an Indiana Pacer. They're in a bad one now because everybody knows that Paul George is not going to be an Indiana Pacer for very long. Everybody knows that Paul George does not want to be an Indiana Pacer very long. He is about to be dialing up one of them cases of what they call that senioritis. Yeah. It's about to be that senioritis. Like, that's coming. Everybody knows that senioritis.
That senioritis, you're there in person, but mentally and spirit, you're long gone.
The thing is, even if you like it, right? Like, even if you enjoy what it is that you're doing, when that senioritis comes, I mean, you're talking to somebody who is ending his senioritis today. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a nice long bout of senioritis. It was like senioritis, but you didn't know when the last day of school was. Like, you imagine that. That's where Paul George is right now. He is dealing with senioritis, but does not know when the last day of school is. That seems like it's going to be a bad situation, especially when the general manager of your franchise is talking like Kevin Pritchard, the man in charge of the Indiana Pacers, is talking right now. Here's what he said about Paul George letting them know that he would leave and be a free agent in 2018, and I quote, "It couldn't have come at a worse time. If we would have known this a few months ago, I think we could have been more prepared. Becoming public was an issue. The draft came and went without the Pacers of obviously coming up with a trade." Here's the only thing, though. You guys help me out here. If I knew Paul George was trying to get up out of there, and if you knew that Paul George was trying to get up out of there, how the only person that apparently did not know that Paul George was trying to get up out of there, Kevin Pritchard. How did Kevin Pritchard not see when Larry Bird was like, nah, I'm going to fall back, but apparently still comes to work? How was that not his sign? Like, maybe this isn't, maybe something's about to. Everybody knew but him. Everybody knew. People have been talking about this Paul George thing going back to the All-Star break. Everybody knew but him. I saw Bruce Bowen at the All-Star game this year, and we were talking about Paul George wanting to go to the Lakers then. That was 4 months ago. How did you not know? And so now they're doing that thing that teams do. Oh, man, it went public. Kevin, everybody knew this, man. Everybody knew this. Like, I have a hard time believing that NBA general managers are like, well, hold on. Now it's different because it's in the paper. You know what I mean? It's in the newspaper now. Now everything's changed. Everything's going to. No, bro, that's no. He was going to be gone. It became incumbent upon you to find a way to move him at this point, right? Now, maybe it was just a matter of the Pacers thinking, okay, no, we'll get him to stay after this. We'll convince him, whatever it is. With what? With what? Paul George said at that softball game a few days ago, I am an Indiana Pacer and I am under contract. What did that night tell you? Everybody already knew this. So what the Pacers needed to do, whether they liked it or not, if they had to take a below-market deal, they had to take a below-market deal. What did we talk about a little bit earlier where I say trade, there aren't really winners and losers in trades. Sometimes you realize you got to move something and you just got to take what you can get for it. Because I felt like the Pacers need to be on the phone with people during the draft, and if you had to go here, this is where they had to go, right? Where you ask somebody, hey, we got Paul George, what do you give us? And you're like, hey, I don't know. Well, look, man, what you got right now? What you got right now? What you got on you right now? Right? I don't need no checks. I don't need no IOUs. Just tell me what you got on you right now. Get what you can get right now.
You get that watch from? All right, yeah, throw that in there too. Yeah, we're good.
yeah, right now. Yeah, I'll take that. That'll work. That's good. I mean, that's just. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that they wound up in, but I do think this happens a lot of times in basketball, where you just look around and you make this decision, like, I'm going to lose him. Let me get back what I can, and I don't know what exactly they could get back for Paul George, but you got to get back what you can.
A couple of things working against the Pacers here. One, everyone knows that Paul George wanted to go to L.A. That's the big one. So everybody knew. So teams were hesitant to give to trade a lot if they knew they were only renting him. So that's one. And then, like I said, his impending free agency was another thing. So it's all a rental, and you knew it was going to be a rental unless you were the Lakers.
Yep.
So you were unwilling. So they're already behind the 8 ball to start because the teams were unwilling to give up that much because they knew it would only be a rental.
Yep. But everybody knew it already. Like, how many times have we been talking about Paul George as a rental before Kevin Pritchard finally understood that Paul George was going to be a rental for somebody? Like, is that just the arrogance of front offices that they hadn't seen this? What I wonder about NBA front offices, though, is why more teams have not learned from the Utah Jazz and what they did with Darren Williams, where you just looked up one day and Darren Williams was gone, right? Like, they just wound up on a call with the Nets, and the Nets were like, how about we give you Derek Favors and a number 1 pick? And they're like, yeah, we'll do that. Boom. Done. Trade. All the drama. Avoided, right? Like, all of that gone. If you got a guy coming up on his second extension and you're not sure if he's going to come back, he ain't coming back. It's simple as that. Like, think about this. Chris Bosh, LeBron, and Dwayne Wade, their second extensions all ended at the same time, right? The Cavs didn't know if LeBron was going to come back. He didn't come back. Toronto didn't know if Chris Bosh was going to come back. He did not come back. Miami never thought for a second that Dwayne Wade was going to leave. Never did. Like, they knew their guy was going to stay, and their guy wound up being the one to stay. If you got an inkling that this dude might not stick around, you need to start working the phones sometime before there's 1 year left on his contract. Because these new teams, nobody wants a rental, but I think those teams are going to feel like, look, if we get a dude in here for a year and a half, 2 years, give him a chance to like it, give us a chance to, like, show that we got a good direction going with the franchise, and then we'll be able to pay this guy more money than anybody else is able to pay this dude, and then we got a chance to keep him. And that's what happened with the Nets. Now, you can make the argument that the Nets would have been better off if they had not kept Darren Williams, but the plan remains in place. And so I get it if you're in a situation like, say, the Cavs were with LeBron in 2009, 2010. You're like, look, we got a chance at a championship. We're going to max out the chance at a championship. I would say the same thing with Oklahoma City and Kevin Durant. Look, we have a chance at a championship. We're going to max out our chance at a championship. Yes, that's the way that you need to go about it. But if you're at a place where Indiana was with Paul George, you're not going to be a championship contender anytime soon. You're not in a place where anybody wants to sign there as a free agent. Jeff Teague is from there. He's probably about to deuce out as a free agent. Y'all probably should have thought about trading Paul George sooner. You probably should have. Instead, you get to the quote-unquote end, and it felt like a gut punch. You hear me said that? It felt like a gut punch. I mean, I understand it felt like a gut punch, but I understand that all gut punches feel bad, but say it all the way. It felt like a gut punch where the dude told me, put your hands over your head, I'm about to punch you in the gut. Right? Like it was not a sucker punch. It was just a gut punch. He told you it was coming. And you were like, all right, cool, I'm going to just stand here. At which point, I don't really feel that bad for you, right? One thing about it in my world, if you get punked, my problem is with the person who got punked. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Hit the phone. Talk to Mike in Alabama. Mike, thanks for calling the right time.
What's going on, Bomani?
Doing all right,
So I feel like we're going to be talking about this Paul George thing for a little while, because since it didn't happen before the draft, I don't think it's going to happen until after free agency, when everybody kind of figures out what they can get. What I'm excited to see is what can happen in Los Angeles once this does happen, because they're obviously really big on trying to get this guy. I appreciate Paul letting Indiana know this far ahead of time, hey, I do want to leave, because one thing I don't think we've talked about a lot, I heard you talk about a lot, is a lot of these guys these days won't let you know until right there before the trade deadline, hey, by the way, I'm not re-signing. Paul's not doing that, so that's great. But could you imagine L.A. giving up just about everything but Lonzo at this point and saying, hey, Paul George, come on over, especially with the free agent market like it is? I mean, L.A., I feel like they're about to throw a few max contracts out this year, and not be afraid to do it. Try and get somebody like a Blake Griffin from the Clippers. And nobody's talked about him staying there much longer. I don't see that happening. If he does stay in L.A., I see it with being with the Lakers. I honestly think Griffin a couple of years from now is going to be an Oklahoma City Thunder member myself. But could you imagine Paul George, Lonzo, Blake Griffin? I could see them getting one more guy over there, max contract, maybe go after Gordon Hayward this offseason, throw that kind of big four together, and then people will stop talking about the Timberwolves being the big thing in the West going up against the Warriors.
Well, I tell you this, Mike, and I appreciate the call. The Lakers are going to throw max contracts out, but it ain't going to be this year. It's going to be next year. Like, you talk about maybe they can get Gordon Hayward, or maybe they could get LeBron James, right? Like, that's where this is going to be. Or maybe they can get LeBron James. So I don't even know how much they're going to have to throw at the Pacers in order to get Paul George. But I do think Paul George will be there. And then it gets interesting because, man, let me tell you, as much as you don't want the West to get overloaded, you want the Lakers to be good. Also, by the way, the West not looking indomitable next year as people make it out to be. Like right now, the Warriors are really messing up the balance of things when we talk about the West. But Shannon, we were just talking about this a second ago. It's a lot of question marks over there in the West, huh?
Aside from the Warriors, and you'd imagine that Houston's going to be good again, but San Antonio, they have question marks. The only guarantee they have right now is Kawhi. Because there have been talks that they're trying to move LaMarcus Aldridge.
And he's a question mark if you keep him.
He's a question mark if you keep him. Powell, you don't know what you're going to get back from him. Tony Parker's towards the end. Ginobili's at the end. You don't know what the Spurs are going to be next year.
Right. And the Rockets don't play defense.
Right.
The Jazz were the 4 seed, right?
Yeah.
The Clippers may be exploding all in this offseason.
The Grizzlies have guys that are free agents, including Zebo.
The Thunder's a one-man team.
And then Portland was the 8th seed.
Right. Let me tell you this. That's why the Denver Nuggets are looking around, and they made that trade yesterday. They're like, yo, man, we got a chance to shoot up.
Yeah, the Nuggets missed the playoffs by 1 game.
And you look at what's going on above them. Hey, man, the West may be better than the East, but the West is not just a bunch of Titans. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, we got your phone calls. And also, whoo, boy, you're not going to be able to shut LeVar up ever now. I'll tell you why on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Amin Elhassan will join us next segment. Amin Elhassan will join us at 5:30 Eastern. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We just talked about the Paul George situation in Indiana. Kevin Pritchard feel like he got punched in the gut. I mean, it wasn't like nobody surprised him. The guy told you, hey, man, I'm going to punch you in the gut. I mean, he didn't come out and say that. But when the dude started balling up his fist and looking at your stomach, what'd you think it was about to be? 888-729-3776. Let's talk to John in New Jersey. John, thanks for calling The Right Time.
Hey, Bomani, how you doing?
Doing all right, man.
Honestly, man, I really think it's time these GMs stop acting like hurt girlfriends. I really do. Because, first of all, he told you what he's going to do. He's actually giving your organization time to put a plan B or C in motion. Unlike Kevin Durant, who gave Golden State no time. They got nothing back for him. At least they can get something back for him. And also what I want to say, Bomani, is I think the real problem is the fact that now the power is in the players' hands in terms of where they want to go. Because if the executives were making these decisions, they'd be getting all kinds of Executive of the Year awards. But now that the players have this say-so, now everybody want to act like hurt girlfriends who got stood up at the prom. That's all I want to say, Bomani.
Well, I will say this, and I appreciate the call. One thing about it is this segment is basically entitled, It's All Business Until Your Feelings Get Hurt, right? And that's how just about everybody is. Hey, it's just business until your feelings get hurt. Then it's, come on, man, I thought we had something. The other thing I would like to note, and this is a very important point because people like to make analogies like hurt girlfriend, like my man said right there, and I'm not going to go over the top about that, but always remember this. You tell jokes about the things that hurt girlfriends do. Hurt boyfriends kill people. Seriously. Really, when you stop and think about that, ask women how afraid they are on a consistent basis about what will happen if some dude gets his feelings hurt. We don't ha about that on the radio. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. So, LeVar Ball's son, Lonzo. Sorry, guys, I forgot which Ball I was going to talk about. Anyway, LeVar Ball drafted by the Lakers. Well, we had Jeff Goodman talk to LeVar Ball yesterday during the draft. Here is that 1 minute and 3 seconds.
LeVar, you already got the Lakers hat.
I'm trying to tell you, I knew this was happening before it was happening.
When did you get this hat made?
When he was a baby.
What's it like now that this has come to fruition for you? You've been talking about it for 9 months.
9 months? You're talking about 19, 20 years.
All right, 19, 20 years.
He had a microphone on me when I was talking about it.
What's it like right now that he is an L.A. Laker?
It's a wonderful feeling. But I already knew what was coming to him. I got 2 more boys. I got to come do the same thing 2 more years.
So you're going to get them to the Lakers too. How?
The big baller way. Ball control.
How good is Lonzo Ball going to be for the L.A. Lakers?
Hey, I'm going to tell you what. Lonzo Ball is going to take the Lakers to the playoffs his first year. Come see me when he does. I have another hat on to say I told you so.
Thanks a lot, LeVar. Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's rechart some things that happened with LeVar at the draft last night. That happened. LeVar also got booed at the draft. LeVar also walked past the crowd with his Big Baller Brand baseball cap on and threw it into the crowd. And if you think people weren't trying to get that hat, you are mistaken.
Yes.
Like, say what you want about LeVar, right? Say what you want. People, Shannon, you saw the clip, right? Them people were jumping on top of each other trying to get a hold of LeVar's hat sweat.
Absolutely. Ball control.
Ball control. Here's the thing, though. I don't know what y'all going to do with LeVar now, because LeVar believes that you can speak things into existence, right? Like, he's that guy. He believes that you can speak things into existence. And I understand that sounds crazy to a lot of y'all. To be honest, it sounds a little bit crazy to me, but I know a lot of people who believe this to be the case. So, like, hearing it from LeVar is not that surprising. That being said, this is a dude who believes that he can speak things into existence, and he said that his son was going to play for the Lakers, and then a lottery pick that the Lakers were not guaranteed to keep wound up falling at number 2, and his son wound up getting drafted by the Lakers after they said they didn't even really want to work out for nobody else. They did work out for the Sixers, I believe it was. LeVar believes that he's the one who made this happen, right? He the one that gave that Y chromosome. He the one that helped that boy play all this basketball to get good enough to get drafted number 2, and he believes that he the one who rigged the lottery to get the Lakers that pick, right? That's right, Shannon. He's sitting there putting that finger to his forehead right now.
Look, Lonzo wears what jersey number? Number 2.
Oh.
What pick did the Lakers have?
Oh.
2nd overall.
Oh.
He's spoken into existence.
Dude, like, and the key is that he thinks that he has. Regardless whether or not you agree, he believes that he can speak things into happening. If he believes that he spoke his son into playing for the Lakers, he is never going to stop speaking. Like, you need to understand that. He is never going to stop speaking. Now, to be fair, he's going to be out here speaking, like, positive things, right? So you think he's going to speak the Lakers into the finals or whatever it is. But what in the world is going to happen if the Lakers make the playoffs this year like he says they would? What is going to happen if the Lakers make the playoffs like LeVar said he would? I ain't going to lie. You think he can speak me a raise? Like, I feel like the Players Association need to get LeVar on the payroll if he's speaking things into happening. Like, hey, LeVar, can you speak the max contract off the books? Please, LeVar? How about that? Hey, could you speak a trade for Paul George and a conditional second-round pick? Since you are doing this. Hey, man, he thinks he can do it. He thinks he can do it. 888-729-3776. Talk to John in Las Vegas. John, thanks for calling the right time.
Hey, Bomani, I love your show, brother.
Thank you, man.
Hey, and this not directed to you, because you never really gave LeVar a hard time. You just use him for entertainment value. But did you notice how many African-American kids thank their mother for working so hard because their dad wasn't around? And then you got a man out there, the worst thing we can say about him is he's just trying to build a brand. And so many people from ESPN, not you, but I know on the weekend, the girls and all them on there, they got such a hard time trying to go into his psyche, play all psychologists on him. But think about that. All those African-American kids, a lot of them, 90% of them didn't have a father around, and they thank their mother for working so hard, raising all their brothers and sisters. And then you got this man up there, and all he doing is speaking, like you said, and pushing his son to be great. And all we want to do is compare him to Michael Jackson's dad and Serena Williams' dad and Tiger Woods' dad. And guess what? They made successful kids.
Well, let me say this, though, right fast, and I appreciate the phone call. One, saying that 90% of these kids didn't have their fathers around is kind of like racist. Like, it really is. But I do think it's funny. Everybody say they want more fathers. These basketball coaches always talk about the problems with recruiting these boys who don't got fathers in the home. Then they get the father and be like, damn, I wish you was a deadbeat. I'm so tired of putting up with you. All right, coming up next, how to handle the Paul George situation. We'll find out from Amin Elhassan the way he'd play it on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. You boys all over the place on television. Catch them on The Jump. Catch them on Sports Nation. Catch him on the Lebatard Show. His name is Amin Elhassan. Amin, we were just talking about Kevin Pritchard saying that Paul George gave him a gut punch. What do you think hearing Kevin Pritchard say that Paul George said he's ready to leave is a gut punch?
Well, first of all, to hear Brian Windhurst tell it, because he was the one, he was listening to it while it was happening. He told me he used the word gut punch like 7 times. Afterward, it just got ridiculous. No, I feel like there's a lot of subterfuge going on here. Because there's no way Kevin Pritchard woke up last week or whenever that report came out and said, you don't want to be here? You're thinking about leaving? What? Like, that can't be true. And if so, then Kevin Pritchard is probably doing a very poor job at being a general manager of a team or a team exec of any sort. And he's not that kind of guy. So this is the kind of thing that you do, because all of this is framing, right? It's all about framing who's the villain. He's the villain. He's the one that has rejected you, Indiana, and not us. We thought we were a match made in heaven and all that. Much like him coming out, him being Paul George a week earlier and saying, I want to remain a Pacer, but we need to get better players. That's his way of saying, yeah, they're not going to get better players, so I'm leaving. But you say, well, I said I wanted to stay. So all of this is kind of framing the way history will be written when he ends up leaving eventually.
Now, you've worked in the NBA. You worked in the front office with the Phoenix Suns. Now, I think you can help give people an understanding of this. After we, the public, find out about something, how long has the NBA world known about it?
Well, it depends. Are you talking about like that Paul George wants out, for instance?
Yes.
Something. A lot of times you've known a lot for a long time. You've known that for a while. Sometimes some people know and some people have no idea. So it's not kind of a universal knowledge that everybody in the league knows it. Sometimes people find out a little later than others. But it is very rare. And it is, I mean, you usually can tell the moments where everyone is shocked. So I'm trying to think the last time where no one saw that coming.
Like the Darren Williams trade, for example.
Yes, that one. That was aggressive. Darren Williams get traded from Utah to Brooklyn. That one shocked everyone to the point where there were a lot of teams saying, well, if we had known he was available, we would have offered. It's one of those things that when you call, because this is how trades work most of the time. You're usually calling teams all throughout the year and say, who do you like on my team, right? And you kind of like, well, I like so-and-so on your team, so-and-so, or whatever. But no one's calling Cleveland and say, what do you want for LeBron? Or I should say, there's always that one GM who does that kind of thing, and everyone like, he's a jerk, you don't answer his calls anymore, right? But for the most part, you don't call about LeBron, you don't call about Steph Curry, you don't call – because you get it, like, okay, that's a franchise guy. Darren Williams was that. And so when he got traded, that one was one that legitimately caught everybody by surprise. But for the most part, people have all had conversations with every team about most players, and you kind of get a feel for what is the rumbling out there.
All right, we're talking to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. So for the Pacers, like my thought was they needed to do this before the draft. Like how bad do you think this could get with him being there during the regular season with everybody knowing he wants to leave?
Well, I don't think first of all, I don't think he's going to start the regular season as an Indiana Pacer. I think he'll be gone before then. I think we're going to see a lot of these offers start to pick up if it passes July 1, because then his salary goes up, and so you can then send more players, presumably, to fit that salary slot, that cap hit. But I don't see them letting this linger into the season. It's not that type of thing. He's a great player, and every additional day that passes, if you're a receiving team, you're like, I'm not going to give up that much because that's one less day I have with them for sure, right? The idea here is that whoever gets them, if they're not the Lakers, you're getting them with the presumption that between now and June 30th, 2018, I'm going to prove to you that being here is so awesome that, yeah, you want to be a Laker today, but by June 30th, 2018, like, no, this is where I want to spend the rest of my career. That's what Boston is trying to do. That's what the Cavs are trying to do. That's what maybe the Miami Heat are trying to do. They're trying to show you, by the time you get here, you're going to love it. You won't want to go back. So every day that passes is one less day for you to prove that to him, and is one day closer to him just going to the Lakers as a free agent.
All right, we're talking to Amin Elhassan of ESPN. Switching gears, what do you think about the Jimmy Butler trade?
I thought Minnesota made out like bandits. Like
really?
Bandits, Bo. Here's the thing. You're Minnesota. First of all, we all know that Tibbs thought he was going to come in and change the core. They had a nice young core. He's going to change everything, and they will be at least a 500 team. That failed miserably, right? So coach is president of the team, expecting success, doesn't get it. There's pressure there because he doesn't think like a general manager. He thinks like a coach. Get me more players. Get me better players now. Then you got a guy in Jimmy Butler who he loves to death, right, as so close, exemplifies the culture that he wants to build. And say, oh, that's the guy that I want. So then you got more urgency there, right? So, and you're done with this whole youth movement. He said, I need old vets that know how to play, or vets, the older players who know how to play. So there's that sense of urgency. If you're Chicago, you're sitting there, so they got all this urgency on their side. Jimmy Butler's on the contract for 2 more years and a player option after that. I have no rush. Why am I accepting this paltry deal as the return? Better yet, why am I throwing a first-round pick in there? Why am I giving them the 16? They just said they don't want young players. So why am I giving them the 16 pick along with Jimmy Butler, who's the best player in this deal? I thought Chicago got fleeced, to be honest. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have traded Jimmy Butler. I get it. That's how the way this league works. But they could have done better, specifically with Minnesota. Forget about could they have done better with another trade partner.
Now, see, it's interesting to me because I felt like for the Bulls, even though apparently they have more, like half the roster is point guards right now. But my thought was if you make this trade, LaVine is going to be a restricted free agent next year. You get to figure out what you're going to do with him. And I guess they still think they have something with Chris Dunn. And I like the marketing kid. Like, I thought they got a halfway decent haul.
No, I didn't. Chris Dunn was one of the worst rookies last year. Doesn't matter where he was drafted. Again, this is a real-time information league. So even if you think, oh, Chris Dunn could be pretty good, you got to sit there in that negotiation room and say, well, he was terrible last year. It looks like he was an awful pick. You guys messed up. If you love him so much, why are you trying to lump him in here? So you kind of almost have to bash the kid in the negotiation because that's where your leverage is. Again, there is no sense of urgency for Chicago to do this deal right now. You could have waited till next week. You could wait till next month. You could wait a year from now, and he'd still have great trade value. It's very different from the Paul George scenario where Indiana is against the clock. So there's that going on. The other thing that's going on, again, is the idea that Tibbs specifically, you've got to rake him over the coals. Anytime you're dealing with a coach who's in charge of the organization, you have to rake him over the coals because at the end of the day, they don't think like general managers. They all think like coaches, and coaches say, just get it done. Just get him in the building. So what if we don't get the 16 pick? That's how coaches think. That was the button they had to press, and they didn't do it.
Amin Elhassan, gifted at spotting the mark, and a great guest here on the right time. My man, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bo.
All right, now ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Amin Elhassan of ESPN for joining us last segment. Zach Harper of FanRag Sports will join us in the 6 o'clock Eastern hour to talk about the Jimmy Butler trade from the Timberwolves side. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. We were talking earlier about Paul George and how Kevin Pritchard, the man in charge in Indiana, all mad, say it felt like Paul George punched him in the stomach when he told him what everybody else already knew. Let's hit the phones and talk to Fred in North Carolina. Fred, thanks for calling The Right Time.
Hey, Bo. Hey, Shannon.
Hey, man.
Thank you for taking my call.
Always.
Before I get to my question, I want to thank Shannon's Knicks for not picking my man Dennis Smith and letting him go to a functional basketball team in the draft. But anyway, I form the opinion NBA GMs are behind football and baseball GMs in dealing with these situations. Bill Belichick got rid of Jamie Collins in the middle of the year when I saw it, I said, my God, he's not getting anything, but it's the same situation. Baseball adjusts to it. If you look at some of the other NBA GM things, from Danny Ferry with the Lyle Dean comments to multiple ones you've talked about, it seems that you don't have to be real smart. Kevin Pritchard, if he had listened to your show, you made the remark as soon as they announced the NBA, all NBA teams, that Paul George was not going to get the Supermax contract, which meant that Indiana was not going to be able to give him huge money to keep him. So, what's your thoughts?
Fred, I agree with you. My first thought as I think about this, the next time I'm in the Triangle, I want to catch up with you, man. I enjoy all your phone calls so much. Oh, Fred's already gone. I mean that, though. Fred always got the cold one-liner in that same voice. He drops it in real smooth, then he keeps it going.
Dropped that smooth line about Dennis Smith and the Knicks, huh?
Yeah.
He just dropped that right in there, didn't he?
But I'm dead serious. Like, every time, because I always forget because it's such a common name, then it pops up. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's my man Fred. We rock with Fred. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. All right, guys, we got a winner last night from the draft. I mean, maybe the winner's Markelle Fultz. He was the number 1 overall pick, but I play a different game with the NBA draft. And that game is called the What Side of Town Did You Grow Up On game, because there's always one draft pick where I'm like, wait a minute, what side of town did you grow up on? And this year's winner, Zach Collins. Here's Zach Collins after being drafted.
Zach, I have to ask you, I understand you had a rather large fifth-year senior playing in front of you, but how do you go from not starting a single game in your 1 year with the Zags to being a lottery pick in the NBA?
I have no idea. All I can say is that, you know, just playing behind a guy like that all year and learning from him and, you know, having the type of trust that the coaches had in me the whole time and, you know, to go in and play those small minutes and produce in those small minutes, you know, I got to, you know, attribute that to staying in the gym and working on things that I couldn't necessarily show in every single game. But I know when I got a good opportunity, I go out there and perform.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, oh, wait, you went to Gonzaga? How did that work out?
One and done.
Yes. I just, like, when he dropped that, I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're the guy who's like, no, I don't just play basketball. I hang out with basketball players all the time, right? I heard him. I was like, oh, okay, cool. By the way, his highlight package looked beastly, like absolutely beastly, and I'm not even mad at him. That whole you didn't start, so you shouldn't go to the draft. He's like, psh, I can go, like, if I can ride the bench in college, I can ride the bench in the league. I'm going to ride the bench in the league where they do what? Cut checks. We also had a white Isaiah Shannon. In fact, was it, and to be specific, was it not a Jewish Isaiah?
From Germany.
What's his last name? It's like Herenstein, right?
Yeah, exactly. Isaiah.
So Isaiah is from Germany. Really? And that's the one we forgot about, Shannon. Your Knicks did the one thing we said always gets people down on you in the draft, right? The one way that it's guaranteed to make your fans question you, right? Drafting a European. We went through the European players the Knicks had drafted that you were so skeptical of while lumping them all together. Remember that, Shannon?
Yeah, so the Rooster, Gallinari, traded for former number 1 overall pick, Bargnani. That took Porzingis with a top 4 pick.
That worked out okay.
Not too bad.
Hold on. Don't forget about Frederick Weiss. Did you guys draft Frederick Weiss?
Yeah.
Remember him? He from Europe?
Yeah, and for those who don't remember, in 1999, the Knicks took Frederick Weiss 1 spot ahead of Ron Artest.
What happened in 2000 to Frederick Weiss?
And, the year after he was drafted, he was playing for his home country in the Olympics. All well and good, right? And then Vince Carter dunked over him, through him.
So how good was Frederick Weiss as a Knick?
Never played 1 game for the Knicks.
Really? So who did he play for in the NBA?
He never made it to the league.
Really?
Never made it to the league.
So I see why you might have been skeptical of the Knicks drafted a European.
Yeah, so, of course, the Knicks drafted a European last night. All well and good. A bright future. I get a text at 8:26 from a gentleman that says Bomani on my phone with LOL.
Yes, that did happen. But be honest. All you Knicks fans are real down when you found out they were drafted a European, and then y'all saw a picture of the European dude and found out his name was Frank, and y'all calmed down, didn't you?
Wasn't too bad. It's different this time. I don't know what it is. Maybe because he's a guard. It's a little different this time.
Does it feeling? Doesn't even matter that Fran Fraschilla or them said they whatever the number is that the ESPN people come up with, he had the highest bust percentage of lottery prospects.
Fran said he'll be a solid starter, but he didn't see All-Star. Yeah, that guy.
I mean, at the 8 pick, that's what you hope to get from the 8 pick. Also, before we go, shout out to the homie TJ Leaf. That blue suit was clean, boy. That blue suit was clean. Proud of you. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Coming up next, Jimmy Butler has been traded. Dwayne Wade still plays for the Bulls. It's time for jokes on ESPN Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.